Yep, that's me. Probably wondering how I got to this here situation. But to understand that, we got to take you all the way back to the beginning. And on today's episode of I'm Bored So I Work, we are going to be rekeying this lock, but we do not have a key. So, we will use a blank, we will use a shim, and we will use a follower. And hopefully everything goes good. Alright, let's get her started. First thing that we are going to do is pop out the tailpiece, held by a cotter pin and a spring underneath. So we're going to press down on the cotter pin and spin and spin and spin. If you let the cotter pin go, you suck. Move the tailpiece out of the way. Keep on spinning. Look at that. Tailpiece is out. Try to be organized if you can. You got the cotter pin. So first, tailpiece. Second, cotter pin. Third, spring. Remember that order because we're going to do that backwards. Next, we're going to shim the lock. Put your blank in with your shimmeroo. If you can grab it. You tap the shimmeroo. You twist the key back and forth and you pull. And the shim starts to go in. This is going in between the top pin and the bottom. What that creates is something called a shear line. Shear line is when you put your key in and it's right for the cuts. Creates the top pin and bottom pin to be smooth with each other, which allows your cylinder to turn. So as we keep doing that, you know what, I can't work backwards, so you'll have to work with me. You keep going. Once your shear line is in, you can turn the key. And I just messed that up. We'll have to do that again. I'm a locksmith, I'm not perfect. Alright. So we'll do that in fast motion this time. Now that you got the idea, turn it, cylinder is turned, just like that, shim comes out. Alright, now, you're going to take your follower. Oh, well, I'm really not the perfect locksmith. So if your follower doesn't follow with your cylinder, you end up like that. That's fun. Alright. Well, now we have a different problem to deal with. So, we got all the top pins. Well, look at that. You get to learn about the innards of a lock today. So we're going to put our cylinder down. We're going to put all of our pins and all of our springs and deal with our new issue. Now, if you laugh at my MacGyver lock, you should. But Husky doesn't really give you a good lock to work with. So, you got a MacGyver when you got a MacGyver. You know? We're going to use our tweezers. Women use them for other things. Men use them for other things. Alright. We're going to need to count 5 springs, 5 top pins, and we're going to have 5 new pins. When you lose stuff, have backups. So if you're like me, I got a backup for the backup. Alright, Well, to deal with that issue, let's clear the cylinder so we can put our new pins in. Let's grab this guy that's hanging out over here that shouldn't be. So we're going to put our pins here since we no longer need them. But what we do need is our 5 top pins. Difference between top and bottom pins is this. Your top pin is flat. Let's see how well you can see that. Flat on the top, flat on the bottom. The reason for that is because that's how they made them. It actually lines up with the spring, and it lines up with the top of the bottom pin, which, you guessed it, is flat. Alright, now we don't need our blank key, and we no longer need our shift. So we're going to put that off to the side. These tools we will need. You're going to take your follower and try not to be an idiot like I was. I'm going to line that up, as you can see, with the 3rd pin, which is the one right in the middle. And the reason I start with that is because that's how you do it. No. But what it does is it allows me to work towards the front of the lock, pull the follower through. You'll see it. Don't worry. Once we have our spring in, we're going to set the top pin about halfway in. And then we're going to butt up the follower up against the top pin and press it down with our tweezers. And we're going to follow the step again. I will show it to you in the first one. You'll be able to see it better. Right now, use your imagination. Once again, pin goes halfway in. Put a 2nd pin in. Put a 2nd spring in. Pin goes halfway in, and we set it. Now, I'm going to attempt to show it to you guys. So that's the first hole, follow it right in front of it. Spring goes in, just like so. And take a top pin. You want to have room, so you have somewhere to set it down, and once you set it down, you use a follower to press it against it. You use your follower to go halfway against it, press it down, and you're in. So that was towards the front, which means our first 3 pins are in. We're going to use our follower and, follow. We're going to go 5th pin, 4th pin, and we're going to leave the 3rd because we already did that. And if we expose it, we'll be right back in the same boat. Which I like boats, but not this one. So, again, pin goes in, about halfway. Butt it up against the follower, press down, and cover it with the follower. Last one, show it to you once again. Spring goes in. Top pin exposed, halfway in. Use your follower to press it up against it, just like that. And then press down. Now, we are where we should be, and we can continue with how to rekey a lock. So now that we got it in the position it should have been in from the beginning, we're going to set it down, and now we key up the lock. We got our handy dandy, very trustworthy LSTA locks. Thank you, IDN. Much obliged. So the first cut is a 7. 7 depth is going to be 270 with a schlag. I'm going to put it in, and that makes it so that it's flush. So once again, when I was shimming the lock, this is flush and pressed up against the top pin that we all just got introduced to unwillingly. And when these are pressed against it, it creates a shear line. which makes it so you can turn the lock. That's how your key works. Now, if you grab a bigger can, that comes up and sticks out, and what happens is that goes up against the top pin and uses a spring to come up, which makes it so you can't turn the lock, and that's how that works. So what we're gonna do is look for the second cut, which is a 3. 3 is 210 under the Schlag fields, or sloggy as all the customers like to call them. Third cut is a 4, which is 225. Gotta love my lap pens. Fourth one is a 3, another 210. So you want it to be flush, and I always check it every time, just in case. Last one is a 5, which is a 240. Everything is flush. Now you use the follower the way it was intended. You press your cylinder up against it and it follows through. Voila. And your key turns. Now, here's another fun little thing. If your key is turned, or if I don't press up against the cylinder right now, which doesn't have the tailpiece engaged, this whole cylinder is coming out. I am not about to show you this again. But the cylinder will come out, and the top pins and the springs are going to drop, and guess what? We're going to have to do this all over. So what you do to avoid that is you take your finger up against the cylinder, like so, and you pull the key at the same time. And now, you're safe. Now remember how I told you, first comes the tailpiece, second comes the cotter pin, then comes the spring? I wasn't just saying that, I said it for a reason, because now you work backwards. You take your spring first. You should have nails. Take your little spring, and you pop it in, drop it down. Then you take your cotter pin. Cotter pin has two sides, one flat, one pointy. The pointy is going to go up against the grooves in the tailpiece, so we're going to want that up. Now, you've got a half moon here, which means some of the grooves are exposed, some of them are covered, and we're going to go for the exposed ones. When you go for the exposed ones, you can see through just like so. You turn it to get it started. You press down on the cotter pin. And you keep going, and keep going, and keep going. And spin the other way. We're going to go clockwise as opposed to counterclockwise this time. Exposed as opposed to not exposed like it is now. You press it down lightly. Once it reaches the end, there's three options. One, you tighten it. And what happens when you tighten it is you put the key in and it's turning hard. Second option is you go back a couple slots. What that's going to do is leave your tailpiece a little bit loose. And what happens with that is that the key won't come out. So that's not right either. And what you do, if all of that is happening, is you press it down and you turn it a couple times, clockwise. Now once you've reached that end point where it's tight, you set it back one. And when you set it back one, it works. So there's the wrong way, there's the right way, and there's Kobe's way. So you do it Kobe's way. And you, ladies and gentlemen, have just rekeyed your first cylinder. Good vibes only.